Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Courtney with Finding the Force. We have a series of interviews with fabulous people who are doing great things in the world. And most of you out there are therapists or you're in HR, you're practitioners, and you are interested in how to make the world better for everybody. So it's my extreme pleasure to introduce to you our guest today, Darcy Lichnerowicz, who's the CEO of Sun Behavioral. I had the opportunity to actually go out and see the facility. So it's just been a wonderful journey getting to know you. Um, Before we launch into the more technical stuff, we really want to get to know you as a person. Would you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in your line of work?
Absolutely. And it has been such a pleasure getting to know you too. I love being able to be part of these types of conversations because mental health and substance use impacts everybody, whether it's something you've chosen as a profession or it's in your personal life. So I'm just so excited to have this conversation today. But I somehow fell into this work in undergrad and studied psychology, became a counselor, and all of what I have been able to do now in this role stems back to my clinical roots. So I started many years ago, feels like a lifetime ago, as a child and adolescent therapist once I completed my master's and worked as a counselor for a number of years. I spent a lot of time in emergency departments and doing mobile crisis work, which is where I got really familiar with the crisis space. And I eventually found my way into behavioral health hospitals, which is really where I've kind of taken off in more of the administrative area. I love being able to be part of a system that is very multidisciplinary and team oriented to provide care. And that's what you've got in hospitals. So I have the privilege of leading a great team here at Sun Behavioral Delaware. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But my clinical roots are really what drive everything I do administratively now.
And well, how do I say this? What were your roots like? What led you to want to be a therapist? And that tough space of working in crisis, especially with youth, that's something that, where angels fear to tread, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone's so afraid of trauma.
Yes, and there is so much of that. So I became a therapist somewhat accidentally. I studied psychology because I thought it was interesting, but we all know that interesting degrees don't always pay your bills, right? So I got my master's in counseling, and that's where I fell in love with it. I love stories. And that's a lot of what doing therapy is. It's hearing people's stories, holding space for them as they understand their own processes, as they understand their own experiences, and getting to support them as they build their next chapters. So for me, it was a very natural fit to become a clinician in that regard. But I also really love finding solutions. So when I was practicing, I used a lot of solution focused therapy modalities, but I also applied that in crisis, right? Because crisis is not long term. It is, immediacy is important, and so it fit very, very well with my passion, but also with what the community needs were that we were seeing at the time. Um, and crisis is very interesting because the hospital systems have to absorb a lot of that.
Yeah.
Emergency departments for many people become where they go when they're in crisis. So helping those systems find a resolution, a safe plan for patients was really, it kind of fed my soul because I was helping people, I was still doing that clinical work, but we were really getting people connected to what they needed when they were like really at their darkest place.
That's amazing. Well, what in your background would you say, if anything, led you to want to really help people? Because some people are really quite satisfied with the paycheck and the nice car, and it's good, but
Yeah.
there's something deeper about people who want to help people. And sometimes I find that there's something in our background or maybe just in our composition, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was raised in a family of helpers. My
Oh,
parents were in a nonprofit organization from the time I was a wee little girl. So I was raised with the belief that your life exists to serve some greater purpose than yourself. And so that was modeled for me from my own childhood, and very ingrained that, you live a life that should contribute to other people. So that was kind of how I grew up. And then I also grew up with a very strong faith background. And so the school that I went to was, it was a faith-based program, and that was a wonderful thing to incorporate too, because I think for many people, their faith and their beliefs are not always incorporated into the healthcare system. So for me, being able to bring in faith, religious beliefs into practice is a really nice spin to put on things. And it was meaningful to me as well, with my background. But again, it was like that perfect marriage of scientific training, loving stories, liking to solve problems, and loving to find what works for people to provide a service and to provide meaning and to help bring along change for people. And it's certainly, I think everybody who does clinical work on here or who works with people in any fashion knows there's no magic wand, right? Like there's no perfect thing, there's no intervention or medication that does everything. But I think when you look at practical solutions, when you look at best practices that are scientifically driven, and then when you look at what is truly meaningful to people, if you can draw all of those things together, you can find ways to help them progress and to heal versus it being just kind of a one faceted approach. So that background for me has really kind of been something I've been able to draw from a lot in my own clinical practice and just in how I've approached even management and administration.
Yeah, because I noticed when I walked in there, I mean, okay, with my clients, I've been to a lot of rehabs. I've been to a lot of VAs with my clients who are veterans, and I've been to a lot of rehabs. And usually, I hate to say this, but they're a little scary. And
They
when I
can
was
be.
coming to a hospital, I thought, ooh, this is going to be even scarier. But guys, I walked in there and it's all full of light and it's just this beautiful energy. I know you just got there a couple weeks ago, so you can't take responsibility for all of it. But I want to say that there's a distinct light about it. And so something is definitely working there. Is there something about Sun's philosophy, like at a corporate level, that maybe makes it different?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been in this business for quite a while. And I think a couple of things are really important. One, it is about a lot of it is about perception. Like people who don't work in the behavioral health space, when you hear psych hospital, people envision One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? Or these,
A hundred
Shutter
percent.
Island, or all these horror stories about what a behavioral health hospital is like. And certainly not everywhere is fancy. A lot of places do the best they can with what they've got, but the field has really progressed in a lot of ways to recognize that, you've got to create a space where people feel safe, first of all, in order to do deep work. And you've got to create a space that is appealing for people to also feel relaxed and comfortable so that they can focus on things that are important versus being on guard or just not being able to let their guard down at all from a comfort perspective. So many companies have really focused on creating that type of an environment that is conducive to healing versus feeling institutional, right?
Yeah.
So that's been very important to Sun Behavioral. In all of the hospitals we have, that is really kind of the focus to create a space that allows people to address the needs that they have with great support in a space that is going to help them with that healing journey. And our motto, our tagline is solving unmet needs. And there are a lot of needs people have that are difficult to address in the healthcare setting. And so our philosophy is how can we figure out what's not being met right now and how can we fill that gap? How can we create something that will allow that need to be met in a healthy, productive way for them? So I think what you feel when you walk into our building is that energy. Not only is the building designed to be filled with light. I mean, I've got windows here behind me and I feel so lucky to get all the vitamin D just sitting here doing work. But like it's designed to create a space where people can take a breath and feel like they are well supported here. And staff feel that too, right? Like that's the energy we want to have of we create a beautiful space for you, but we are here to figure out what's not working. What can we do to really impact you as a person and to impact the community at large in ways that maybe haven't been done before?
Well, this segment is about the background. So I wanted to talk about you the whole time, but we can also talk about the building and the layout. I found that fascinating. And guys, if you ever, well, you probably won't have a chance to take a tour with Darcy. So let me kind of describe it a little bit for you. You know, when you walk into these beautiful doors, it's all full of light. The receptionist, I have to say, was very sweet, very welcoming. Like you did a great job hiring her. And it felt so good. We went through the building and there are all these corridors that are specially designed really almost to feel organic, as much as a building can feel organic. You know, there's this light, there's art everywhere. The way that the corridors were designed. Oh, and the food. I could smell the food from the parking lot. I didn't expect that. Can I say that was just such a treat to see all the salad bar laid out? And also, there are these little rooms where each person can go and get some private space. I know I've heard my clients say that they feel a little claustrophobic when they're in these treatment facilities. They feel like they're institutionalized, like they're in lockdown. Sometimes the food is horrible. Sometimes they don't have any personal space. And it feels like you've had the foresight to address that beforehand. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
It does because, for many of us who have done this work for a long time, we've seen it done well, we've seen it done not so great. And, when Sun was launched, that was the perfect opportunity to take all the wonderful things that the experts had seen in different places and to really be able to pull an ideal space together that's going to be conducive to recovery and to the time people spend with us. Because the reality is, being in a hospital is tough. Even in the most beautiful, well designed, well run hospital, you're still here because you're in crisis. You're
Yeah.
still here because your life is in a really tough space and it's not the spa. You're not here on vacation. So, we put a lot of thought into everything. And at its most basic, let's be real, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If we're not addressing safety, basic needs, you're not going to be able to do this higher level work that you need to do to be able to move through this crisis period. So, yes, good food and having some great choices for what you eat for lunch today is important to your mental wellness journey. Feeling like have something productive to occupy your time. Being able to laugh in a recreational therapy group, bringing some normalcy back and building in healthy routines, but also trying to give people some choice to that while they're in a treatment program is very important for what that needs to be. And we really are very intentional about everything from, I had a meeting just yesterday about literally what is on our lunch menu, down to how we schedule the day to make sure that we're helping people with routines and remembering that just because you're in crisis doesn't mean that you can't also enjoy life a little bit, and figuring out how to rebuild social connections and creating spaces that organically allow for those things to happen again, even though you're in a secure facility.
It's a tricky balance, and I'm really happy to see that people are thinking about that and that people really care deeply.
They do.
So
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled. I want to give the audience a little teaser. We have three more segments with Darcy where we're going to talk a little bit more deeply for you HR people and therapists about exactly what this process might look like, how to be, I'm not sure if it's HIPAA compliant, but if someone is in crisis in your department and you have to help them, how do they take a leave of absence? You know, what's maybe covered by insurance, what everything looks like so that they can also get back into the workforce smoothly. For youth therapists, I think somebody told me the story the other day of having a client who just kind of went AWOL for a little while, and it turns out that they were hospitalized or they went to rehab and their own therapist didn't know. So I think sometimes people feel shame or anxiety, and maybe the therapist on the list can understand better about how to help people through that. Not that it's your fault if your client doesn't tell you, but if you're talking openly about it and they sense that, maybe they're more inclined to lean on you. So that's what we have coming up in the next episode, and I look forward to seeing Darcy again.